Happy Monday morning. How's everybody doing today?
Very good.
New week full of promise.
That sounds good, Randy. Well, welcome to the call. Thank you guys for all being here this morning. And there's a couple things that I wanted to talk about this morning, and I'm going to bring a scenario we ran into last week into the mix just to kind of show you how some of this stuff lays out. But we've been talking a lot about ways we can build value in accounts lately, and we've also been talking about how we can help improve someone's position without necessarily, having it be about cutting costs and taking money out of the account. And so the example I wanted to bring up this morning for you guys is an account we did last week. And Gordy, you're on the call, correct?
Yes, I am.
I think I heard. All right. Well, Gordy, what I want to do is just have you explain a little bit about the account that we wrote last week, or one of your accounts you wrote last week. Who they are, how you got them, and just kind of give us the playing field of what it is that we walked into on it.
Okay. Well, this was a automotive repair shop, and it's been in business, I think, 28, 30 years, something like that. They were a referral from one of my bank customers, and the issue there was they had been written by the bank previously, or through the bank previously, and their current provider had just left them hanging regarding EMV. And they continued to call the bank saying, what do I need to do? When am I going to get this done? So I got the opportunity to go make the call on these folks. So their driving factor in this particular case was getting EMV ready, because it's a pretty good size shop and they do lots of business, and most of it's high tickets, and they weren't at all interested in having to assume the liability if they didn't go to EMV. So Chad and I looked at the numbers from their statements, and this was not one where we necessarily had to go in and improve their rates, but really looking at improving their program by getting them into EMV. And so we looked at a couple of options, and Chad and I worked on this ahead of time, so we had a game plan. And this worked out the way it was supposed to, because this became a one-visit close, and it was all done at once. But we gave them an option. Option A was it was almost A1 and B, because one option was we didn't change rates at all, kept them exactly where they were, and sold them a terminal. And then the other part of that would be of option A was to keep the rates where they were and provide them with a terminal at no cost to them. And then option B was then we were going to lower their rates and have them buy a terminal. And once we went through that with them, they chose the option to stay at their same rates and have us provide a terminal, which rather than lowering their rates, they were more interested in just getting another terminal. So we got to keep the profit in the deal, which was pretty good, and even by providing a terminal, still made good profit on the front end, and we'll get the profit down the road in the residuals. So they bid on the option to let's get this new terminal in place rather than trying to lower their rates. And we did all that in one day, and we overnighted their terminal to them, and they're doing business with us today.
And let me fill in a little bit of color on the different options and stuff. Now, this mechanic shop, they're averaging over $50,000 a month in card volume, right?
Right.
And so, along with that, that gives us a lot of latitude in having some upfront money to play with to provide a terminal if need be. And so option A was very straightforward. It was your rates will stay exactly the same, and we'll cover the cost of the terminal and get that in here for you. Option B was we're going to drop your rates and we'll save you money, but then you lease a terminal and you'll still net out, I think it was about $25 a month in savings. Right. But we'd have the upfront money of that lease, even though the residuals would get shrunk down a little bit. We'd see that money up front, right?
Right.
Hey, let me ask, this is John Eliason real quick. Does anybody, Chad, one of the things Chad said was that we have some latitude when he was just describing, when he said, let me add some color. He said that we have the ability to cover the cost of a terminal because we have latitude on the upfront money. Let's just make sure that everybody knows what that means, would you, Chad? Because because some of the people on this call are new, right?
Right.
So if they're new, then let's just make sure how much money was there up front. If we did nothing but convert them over to us, you get a conversion bonus, right? You get a conversion bonus. And so how much would that be, which give or take, what was the ballpark? What would that be if we just kept the rates the same and moved them over here?
$475.
$475. So you're going to make $475. So that's the latitude. So now you can say, well, you know what? We'll just give them a free terminal, which is going to cost how much?
$231.
Okay, so you're still going to make $400, or I'm sorry, $200.
Right.
So you go in there, you make $200 up front. They're with you for the next handful of years. So you make $200 up front, and how much on the back end residuals?
It came out to $84 a month. They're a little above that.
So Gordy's making $84 a month on the deal?
Right.
Right.
Wow. So you make you give them a free terminal, put $200 in your pocket, plus you're going to make over $1,000 a year on the deal.
And we made the customer happy and the bank happy.
Right, because there's a bank referral.
Right.
And so after you guys get done with how the numbers work, because I don't know about you guys, but I think the biggest challenge, no matter what you're selling, is prospecting. How do you even get into deals like this? Because if you get into the deals like this, then we can almost always figure out how to make the numbers work so you can get it. Would you guys agree?
Yeah.
Yes.
But then it's the prospecting, I think, pardon my French, but I think the prospecting is the bitch, Yeah, but, I mean, unless you have a system, and the people that make all the money have a system, so if you can weave around back to how you got the prospect in the first place, but after you're done with your numbers, if you've got more color you want to throw in there for the numbers, feel free.
Yeah, I guess so. The difference came out to just under $400 difference because we were lowering the rates, but we had a lease commission in there. So basically, the cost to get the account one way versus the other is option B by leasing a terminal. Gordy'd make about $400 more up front. By keeping the rates the same, he's making $25 a month more in residual. So, in just over a year's time, he's made up that difference completely and is ahead for the rest of the time. So either way, it's a good option. And the best part about it is the customer gets to choose so they get what they want. Which one suits you better, option A or option B?
And it's a long-term account. It's a long-term account because they've already been with the bank for, probably 20 years. They're not going anywhere.
Yeah. Chad just made a fantastic point. It's interesting how humans operate. You can imagine everybody in this call, imagine yourself, somebody saying, hey, here's the deal. Here's what here's what we have. Does that make sense? And then they can either say yes or no, or they can say I'm going to stay with what I have, or I'm going to go with you guys. So those are their choices: stay with what I have, or go with you guys. And humans, it's good to have two choices, but I don't like the odds of that one because only one of those choices is the one that benefits me. So one of the things I've always found valuable when every merchant that I go to, or at least 95% of all the merchants I go to, what I want to do is come up with two choices. And ultimately, I don't care which one they choose, because what I want to do is, rather than saying, do you want to keep yours or go with mine, I want to go, hey, here's two great choices for you, Mr. and Mrs. Merchant. Which one works better for your business? This one, where you keep your same rates and we'll give you a terminal, or you can lower your rates and lease it. Which one works better for you? Now you're asking them which one of those works better for your business. Their focus is on exactly that. Which one of these works better for your business? You're not even. It's almost like you're almost removing their existing situation, because you're asking them A, B, rather than, well, do you want to go with me? Yes or no? Does that make sense?
It does.
Makes a lot of sense.
Well, it makes dollars and cents. I can't tell you, and I don't know how many, I don't know how much more money I've made because of that, because I don't know what I would have done, but I know that it just, the sales process feels so much easier when I give them those choices, and I don't care which one of my choices that they take. I just want them to take one of them. And then you get into the finer points, like Chad was saying, well, the lease commission would have been $400, so he would have put it more in his pocket. But if we lowered the rate, the conversion bonus would have been a little bit lower. So a little bit lower conversion bonus, more lease income, and less residual income because we lowered the rate. Or you keep the rates the same, get them a terminal that costs a couple $100, and you're going to make more money. Like Gordy was saying, man, it's been around for a long time. It's a business that's here to stay for a long time. I'm going to make so much more money over the long term if I keep the rates. And that was a smart play, Gordy and Chad. Great job.
And that lease would eventually run out, and you'd be at a lower residual.
Right.
So this way it works out. The residual stays where we wanted it to be for the long term. Man,
if you guys could just, you need to come up and put on a clinic up there. I think that's a great job, you guys. Man, what a great illustration of and then speak to how you got the deal in the first place, would you? Why the bank? Why for anybody in this call who's not approached banks? Why on God's green earth would a bank send you one of their clients?
Because they don't want to have to deal with all the minutia that we deal with in taking care and servicing accounts, and they don't understand the structure. And they had a previous provider that dropped the ball, didn't take care of their customers, and disrespected some of the bank personnel, and they fired them, and I got the business.
Nice. Why did they choose? Where did you come from? How'd they know of you?
I had a contact at the bank, and I approached them, and they said, well, we're in this other deal. And I got my name in the hat, and I actually worked with them off and on for probably close to 2.5 years. And I was always right there. And when they finally got fed up with the other folks and fired them, I was the one that got called.
Nice.
Well done. So, very well done.
There's Brian talking. And for those of you who don't know Brian, how many bank referrals do you think that you've received?
A couple hundred, probably.
A couple hundred.
No wonder
Brian has 600. Go ahead.
And the way he played it is the classic maneuver to be. Just hang around until whoever they're using makes them mad. I just got a bank, came on board with me that I've been hanging around for 6 years. Go and see them every 3 to 6 months. Hey, how you doing? And one day, whoever they were using made them very unhappy, and I was the first guy they thought of, and it's been great ever since.
It's interesting. It's like there's a couple. It's like playing tennis. I learned recently that in playing tennis, it's not that you try to beat the other guy so hard. You just wait for him to make a mistake, because they always do. People will make errors, and people in this industry make a lot of errors. And
yeah, they do.
They do. It's interesting. You might think that here you are, and like Brian's in Iowa, and or let's say it doesn't matter. Let's say that you're anywhere. And I think one of the hesitations that people have about going to a bank is that, man, I'm going to a bank. I mean, they're going to know everything, and I'm not going to know anything, and they're going to look stupid. They're going to ask me questions. I'm not going to know the answer. But the truth of the matter is, well, what would you say, Brian or Gordy? What's the truth of the matter when it comes to banks understanding this merchant services business at all?
They don't.
They don't.
They don't. And so you know one of the reasons that keeps people from going to banks is that they think that the banks know what they're talking about, and they don't. Banks are really
that's the
good.
great thing about the illusion that their bank's customers have, is that the banks actually know something.
Yeah, and they,
Really?
it's a bank's defense. Let's jump on the side of the bank and put our arm around the chubby banker down on First and Main for a moment. They've gone to school for whatever they've gone, probably finance or something. They understand buying money at 0.5% and selling it for 5%. They understand those things, and they go, okay, well, what's the chance of us getting our money back if we loan it out, and what has certain percent of people aren't. They understand that pretty well. They understand buying and selling money pretty well. But and they understand that in order to have clients in the bank to either get money in to loan out or to loan money out to them, they've got to provide other sorts of things to get them in the bank, like credit card processing. And so they go, okay, we want credit card processing. Some of them do insurance, some of them do investments. They do all these different things, free checking, blah, 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 just to get you in the door to loan you money. So this other stuff that they bring on to get people into the bank, they usually don't understand, like credit card, like merchant services. So here they are with something as complex as merchant services can be, like Gordy brought up EMV. And the bank, now the bank, here's the interesting thing about the bank. The bank is admitting, they go, man, we don't want the liability. Now, whether that's real or perceived or, maybe it's not even a real liability at all, but the bank doesn't know about merchant services, and they've heard about this EMV, and it sounds god darn scary. And so they're going, you know what, our other provider left these people hanging. We just got to get somebody in there that feels like they know what the hell they're talking about, so we don't look like we're providing the wrong kind of service and somebody sues us. So the banks are, we don't know what we're talking about, and therefore it's scary. We need somebody. So, and it's not always the short-term play. Banks, like both of these guys have shown, these banks need to be, there's in our world today, it's harder to build trust. Trust, or I should say it differently. It's more important than ever before, trust, because there's so many people coming and going. There's so many channels on TV. They're just, we don't know what's right or what's wrong because there's so many choices, and we don't have enough time with any of these choices to figure out what's right. So one of the things that both Gordy and Brian play right is this trust and time sort of thing. If you hang in there and just go touch, like Brian said, every 3 to 6 months, and I don't know how frequent Gordy did, but over time they go, oh yeah, I know that guy. And so even just the knowing increases the trust meter. The trust meter goes up. Oh, I can count on this guy's going to be back around. Oh yeah, he's been around. As opposed to somebody calling up with the phone and going, hey, here I am. I do credit card processing. I want to. They go, look, I get 1,000 calls a day. So sometimes this, if you just have time, really is on your side if you can have the patience to do it. So, but
hey, John?
Going to banks. Yeah, sorry.
Bruce from Nebraska. I was a former banker for 27 years.
Right. Yeah.
I wasn't one of the former chubby ones at First and Main, but let me tell you a little story. The illusion of liability is maybe an understated thought process. The banks, believe me, banks have the thought that they have a huge liability because, as everybody knows in this society, everybody sues everybody, and they're going to go to the one with the deepest pockets. The banks don't want to send their people out and have something stupid go wrong and have them getting sued. So I would, if anybody out there who plays on a bank contact, don't underestimate that thought process that you reduce the liability from the bank, because it is a real issue with the banks.
And this
right.
happened to be
it's huge leverage.
This happened
Absolutely.
to be a community bank, and they have a much more direct contact and personal relationship with their customers than the big banks. And so the customers are looking to them for some direction.
Yeah, that's true. Here, if you look at your when you receive money from us, direct deposit in your account, we use a bank called Highland Bank. Highland Bank has like 8 locations. We don't use a big bank, and they use us. All their merchants use us for card processing too, and it wasn't right away. It took us a little bit of time to get them, but thankfully we look credible to them, but there too, they just they don't have the foggiest, and they don't want the liability. That's one of the things that came up. They don't understand it, and with EMV coming out and all that kind of stuff. And I know this kind of turned into a bank call, versus an AD close kind of deal. But boy, there's some awfully good stuff that we're covering today. So on the prospecting side, go to banks, and let me ask you guys, for those guys, Gordy, Bruce, Brian. So when you go to you guys have touched on the liability kind of thing, but what would you say? Let's say for the people that haven't been to a bank, and you mentioned independent bank. Would you if you're telling me, if you're teaching me to go to a bank, how do I know what bank to go to, and what bank do I go to? Who do I see at the bank, and what do I say?
Well, you're going to want to start with the smaller, more family-owned banks, because they're the ones that have the close relationship with their customers. You don't want to go to Wells Fargo because there's nothing there for you. They've got 100 people that do or more that handle the kind of things that we do, as big as they are. But the one that I always use if I walk into the bank, I just ask for, I just go in and ask the person at the front counter, if I want to get a credit card machine for my business, who would I talk to? And they will point you over to whoever's currently handling it in the bank, and then you can see kind of what their program is a little bit. And generally that person does not enjoy doing merchant services at all, because they don't understand it, and every time somebody comes in and wants a credit card machine, they want to crawl under their desk and hide. It's really not all that hard. It's just that they all would like to get rid of it, but they just don't know who to trust it with. Who to trust to have them do it.
So if you're teaching me to go in and see a bank, you go, okay, go to the smaller banks, like so in my community, I know what the independent community banks are, and some of them, I don't know how many locations they have, but they're and some of them I'll go in and go, oh, I didn't realize you had 50 locations. I guess so you're probably barking up the wrong tree there. Some of them are going to have one, but I'm going to go in there and they're going to point to the person or give me their phone number because they're out at lunch. So but I am going to see them. And Brian is right. He said when you ask them about the stuff, they crawl under their desk because. Why? Tell them why. Why do they crawl under their desk? Why do they? If you approach them, because they're going to do more things than merchant services, right? But somebody at the bank, whomever this person is at the bank that you got pointed over to, does a whole variety of things. Merchant services is one of them, right?
Right, and they do a handful of machines. 6 to 10 machines maybe a year, and every merchant needs it a little bit differently, and they don't understand it well enough to get them the right thing in the first place. And then when the equipment shows up, that they go to download it, they don't know what they're doing, and they screw that up. And then somebody somewhere turned a couple numbers around, and now the money's going into the wrong guy's bank account, and they're sitting there looking stupid because they don't know a lot about it. They would love to get rid of it. All you have to do is make them trust you enough to give you a shot. And after you
so what do you
one
say?
Or two,
how do you get them to trust you?
I have a list of references, which that takes a while to obtain. But as it turns out, a lot of the people in the banking community know each other from going to different kinds of compliance meetings and whatnot. And once you get a couple of them, you can use them to vouch for your credibility.
But let's say I've never done it before. I'm going to my first one. Tell them about your first one.
And my first one, I happened to bank there.
You've never done it. Okay, right.
And,
so you happen to bank there.
I happened to bank there, so they already knew me. They know what kind of guy I am. They know what I'm about. And I explained to them, this is what we do. This is what I'm doing. And they said, oh, we would love to get rid of it. We would love to get rid of it. And right now we've got this we've got to do, and then we've got that we've got to do, because merchant services is way down at the bottom of their list of things that they have to do right away. So it just took a few weeks, and they handed their portfolio basically over to us, and so I wrote, I don't know, 25 accounts, and then they supplied.
So
me
let
with
me ask
leads.
you. Let me ask about that though. So what did you do in the meeting? Have you ever gone to a bank, whether it's that one or a different one, and go, well, you know what? Give me a shot at a couple. Do you ever do something like that? Look, let me take a look at a couple, see what I can do. If you like what I do, let's talk. Or how would you approach it that way?
Yeah, that works well. Especially until you get, a list of references. Because once you have a stack of references, that's huge. My thing is, they want references. It's like, well, how many phone calls you want to make? Because I can keep you busy for a week calling people, because that's how many I have. Which that's a great thing to have. But when you don't, it's just, as John said, just let me show you what I can do.
And that's what I did with
and
with
if
this
you like
bank.
what I do.
And Gordy, you said with this bank, is that how you got this?
I had a contact, and I got in to talk to them, and because they already had a relationship with another provider, I talked them into letting me have a shot at anything that the other folks wouldn't write. And we got a couple of small deals that way, and that just kind of kept my name on the plate with them. And when the other guys finally messed up, I got all the business.
Good. And then you were astute enough to, man, and then when you get in and you get, it's interesting. So he goes in and says, look, just give me an opportunity. I'll take care of some things maybe you've got problems with. You get a couple little deals. They also may flip you something that's completely way out in left field that we're not going to get, some adult porn account or something like that. But so, I mean, seriously, they will, or some travel, like some crazy deal that's just never going to happen. But so just be prepared for that. But Gordy got a couple of deals, kept his name in the hat, and then once they crack this thing open, then you've got the juiciest accounts in town. Would you guys all agree with that have done?
Oh yeah, they will get you into places that you'll never get in on your own. I've written huge universities, medical centers, stuff that if you just walked in there off the street, they're not going to give you the time of day. But when the bank president makes your appointment for you, they're going to listen to what you got to say, and it doesn't take a lot of persuasion to get them to move forward because they want the bank to be happy.
Well, right, they trust the bank. They like the bank relationship for whatever it is, and then you happen to be part of that. You're instantly part of that relationship. You don't have to build.
Yeah, you're part of the bank, basically.
Yeah, you're part of the. Yeah. They see you as that. So you're not just some sales goofball that stumbled off the street trying to hoodwink them into something. You're coming from the bank.
Yeah, and I think the other thing to remember on the banks is, number one, as Brian mentioned, they don't want to do it. They don't want to do it. They don't have the time to do it. They don't want the liability. But they do want two things. They want to offer that as a service to their customers because they want to see where the money is coming through to their account. They want to keep track of the deposits that the customer is making, because if that customer comes in and wants a loan or whatever the case may be, they want a shot at their whole portfolio to figure out where all their profit's coming from.
Because they also have a theory, and it's true in business, is that the more products they have tied up with that particular customer, the less likely they are to leave. So if they can add the merchant services piece to one other service that they're providing, everybody's happy.
Yeah. So the bank thing is a great way to go. So if you haven't done it, go test it out. Get it. You know what? The thing is, it works. Once you get it figured out, once you figure out how to work it, it will work for you in a big way. I have written a ton of business myself out of banks and for many years, and it's a huge deal. The other thing is, make sure, back to that A/B. Let's kind of wrap this up with this A/B. It's so important when you do the merchant tune-up. When you do the merchant tune-up, you send it into your agent director. Make sure that your agent director may, I hope not, but they may take the lazy way and only give you one choice. Go, hey, let's go to them with this. It's your job to go, hey, give me an A/B, man. What are two different ways we could skin this cat? And just like we went through with Gary, there were really three, but there are really two basic ones. Keep the rate, give the terminal, lower the rate, Lisa. You can do the same thing, and you can do it that way, or you can see, should we put a clover into it? You make sure that you get a couple choices, so you go back to the merchant with A, B, and either one they choose, you're cool with. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. And Brian, no, you're coming up here tomorrow, aren't you?
Yep, I'm be heading out in the morning.
Good. So, and everybody, we love to, we've got people that Brian lives like 4.5, 5 hours away, so he comes up fairly regularly. We've got people who live farther away that come up a little less regularly. But I was going to say the door's open. It's not. We always have to have it locked. But we know you're coming. We would love to have you. People. It would be nice if we know you're coming, so we can, make sure that we roll out the red carpet. But you're always welcome to come here. We'd love to spend time with you. Love to meet you. Love for you to see and meet our people. The people who are your people. They're your people. Come and see us. Say hello. And I know I always like that. I like to see the guys that I'm doing business with, or the gals, or whatever. I like to look in their eyes and go, all right, who are you? So we're always open to that. So banks are a great thing. Come and visit us. Make sure you go to the merchant with an A/B choice, and you're going to have some fantastic experience. So with that, you know what? Tomorrow we're doing it for those of you that come to the case study example. Tomorrow at noon Central Time, we're doing a case study. I'm not sure which one it is, but there's always some good stuff in there. And come with questions too. Come with any kind of question that makes sense or doesn't tomorrow, and we want to make sure that you are on the same page or on the right page to be able to get as much business as you can. Make sense, everybody? Chad, do you have anything to add?
No, I guess I don't know if anybody has any questions on the stuff we talked about, but if we don't have any questions, tomorrow at noon.
Yeah. Well, and I'm going to jump off. So you have questions, you've got Chad if you want. Thank you, Gordy.
Thank you
completely for that case study. Bruce, thanks for chiming in. Brian, thank you so very much, and we'll see you tomorrow. And thank you, everybody on the team. I'm going to jump off and talk to you guys soon. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
If
any of you guys that have been doing this bank referral thing, if you've been asked about having a scripted presentation to sit down in front of one of these bankers and just kind of pitch your program?
I don't have anything that was scripted, but I went and sat down with the board early on and made my pitch to get my foot in the door.
Okay, because I'm trying to build one because I got a friend of mine who's been a banker for 30 years who's on the verge of getting me in front of some bankers. And if the first step goes well, the second step is supposedly going to be really cool. But he's like, oh, you got to build this presentation book. So, I'm kind of, going crazy.
And I think that's something, as far as just, I think what they're looking for probably is some collateral material there, so that just to kind of show who you are and that you're legit. I would work with your agent director on that, just to, as far as what materials are available, as what collateral is available, just so, that people like color pictures and things like that, and to be able to fill in some color and some details of what services we offer and what we can do for them. But I think a lot of it, and Bruce and Brian and Gordy, tell me if I'm wrong, but is selling a bank really any different than selling a regular merchant account, or is it still all the same? Hey, we need to go in, do discovery, find out what's important to them, and then tailor our pitch to that.
I believe that's the way.
I got an idea for that guy.
Okay. Who's talking?
Ron.
Hey, Ron.
How are we doing? Hey, fairly early on, my wife sold Mary Kay in a big way, so she suggested you need a presentation book, and it was a 3-ring binder with transparent envelopes. I went to the Kinko's and spent about $80 to get printouts of everything, so that I could talk through whatever I thought the merchant needed. At the same time, I was handing him flyers about Clovers or brochures about First Financial, and if the guy's looking for some kind of structure, that was a structure that helps me, just for what it's worth.
Okay, so it is back to my original theory that bankers can't stay on tasks unless they have a roadmap in front of them or a donut to keep them occupied. So, yeah, my agent director has gotten stuff, and I'm breaking it apart a little bit and throwing it through a comb binder so I can give these people a handout. So I just want to see if I was on the right track.
No, I think that's exactly the track.
Chad.
Yes.
This is Bob. I've got a question. Are the banks, are they approached or treated like a JV?
Yeah, that's exactly how almost all of them roll out. You know, the ones that the credit unions will tend to not have necessarily a formal agreement in place, and if Bruce is on the call, he could probably explain why that is. But I know we've got quite a few credit unions that we have people that agents that work directly with their folks there. But I think the big thing why they don't do that is they're really not geared toward business banking, but more of the personal banking side and that sort of thing, versus commercial lending and things of that nature.
Well, at what point do you bring that into the conversation?
You know, I think that's all part of the discovery, and I'll let these guys that have done more of them. You know, I've been involved in a lot of them, but every one of them, it seems like that's all part of the discovery question and figuring out, you know, what is it that you're doing now? If somebody comes in and wants an account set up, you know, who do you go to? What's the process you use? Who's the processor you're doing it through? Are you guys doing it yourself in-house, or, you know, do you have an outside company like us providing that service for you? And once you find out what the lay of the land is there, then you'll have a better idea of what direction to take it. Because you can always ask that question: do you want to continue on in a program like that, or are you guys looking for something different? What does something different look like to you? You know, it's really about doing the discovery on the front end with them and finding out, you know, what are their likes and dislikes.
Okay.
Is Brian and Bruce and Gordy still on?
Yeah.
Is there anything you want to add to that, or I mean, every joint venture I've always done has been that way.
And and it depends on each individual's experience, but in making presentations. But as big a deal as having handouts and the bottom line is you've got to make an impression upon them. You've got to get them to trust you. You've got to develop a relationship with them the first time you meet them, and it's looking them in the eye and shaking their hands and the presence that you bring and and asking those questions like you're talking about and letting them know that you know what you're doing and that you're the guy they want to do business with.
Well said. Do we have any other questions?
No, but I had a comment. That is probably half the problem, is I don't know what I'm doing yet.
Well, we can work on that too. So, it's just like I don't think joint ventures are really any different than a normal merchant account. It's just the sales cycle on them takes a lot longer. But it's all the same process. It's build the rapport, do the discovery, find out what they really want, what they dislike, and tie them down to, hey, okay, so if I can do this, and this, can we move forward? And when we'll work with you, and I don't know how many joint ventures I've done over the years, but every one of them ends up the same. Some of them take 2 years to get the thing finally up and running, and some of them, it's like you make that impression they're in need of something right now, and heck, you got referrals coming out your ears, you know, and you can't move fast enough to keep up with all of them. So, which is kind of the way it's been for Gordy since the bank decided to throw the other ones out. How much time are you spending on your bank deals now versus just your regular business that you're doing, Gordy?
I'm probably spending 75% of my time on the bank business. Because, you know, now that this has happened, now they go back to their portfolio, and there's, you know, 40 or so that are on their list that they've done business with in the past. There's about half of those that are live active accounts, so we're working those first, and then we're going to go back and pick off all the other ones that they've had, you know, had in their shop, but not anything happening on. And then they got all the new business that comes in the door every day on the loans that they're making.
You know, and the beauty of this that really hasn't been said at this point, or I think it's an underlying current, is all that time that it took to get everything up and running in from the prospecting point of view. Now, Gordy, correct me if I'm wrong, but you're really not having to spend much time prospecting. It's contact the banker and see who I need to get a hold of. And so the time you're spending is, you know, going through the statements and going out to present and write the deals, which is really the more where you make the money at. Is that fair to say?
That is fair. That's where you want to be, and that's what I'm doing right now.
Fantastic. Well, if there's no other questions, I'll let you guys get to work because I know there's tons of business out there to write. I've seen all kinds of statements coming in over the last week, so I assume that means that a lot of that will be coming in today and tomorrow. Anybody else have any other questions? All right. Well, thank you guys for coming today, and thank you guys for participating, Gordy and Brian and Bruce. Have a great day. I'll let you guys get out there and make some of that green.